Good evening, you're watching the News at 6 with me, Shan Russell. The News at 6 is all about the day's biggest developing stories, and we'll be filling in on them over the next half hour. But first, the headlines that we're tracking right now. In a historic visit to boost bilateral relations, Prime Minister Narendra Modi presides over signing of 12 agreements with Iran, 3 of them on developing the Chabahar port to improve connectivity. ISRO takes the first step in developing reusable space shuttle. The reusable launch vehicle RLV-TD tested successfully at the Sriharikota spaceport in Andhra Pradesh. Three police officials killed in Srinagar in the first such attack in 3 years. Security forces on a manhunt for Hizbul Mujahideen terrorists. And airstrikes and suicide attacks by the Islamic State terrorists in Syria. Over 100 people killed in 2 strongholds of the Bashar al-Assad regime. Our top story this evening, the trilateral agreement on the Chabahar port between India, Iran and Afghanistan was signed a short while ago in Tehran. Chabahar is the first foreign port in which India is involved to this extent. The Chabahar port in the Gulf of Oman on the Iran's southern coast with Afghanistan will allow India to bypass Pakistan to transport goods to Afghanistan and Central Asia using a sea-land route.
Nations in this region who are exporting terrorism, but at the current time we are experiencing.
We made to write new chapters in our engagement.
دیدار امروز ما آغاز فصل جدید در مشارکت‌های ما خواهد بود.
Excellencies, the agreement of the establishment of a trilateral transport and transit corridor signed just a while ago can alter the course of history of this region.
عالی جنابان، قرارداد راه اندازی یک کریدور سه جانبه حمل و نقل و ترانزیت کالا که تازه به امضا رسیده میتواند مسیر تاریخ این منطقه را تغییر دهد.
It is a new foundation of convergence between our 3 nations.
این قرارداد بنیان نهادن یک مسیر تازه همگرایی در میان سه ملت است.
The corridor would spur unhindered flow of commerce through the region.
Earlier on the second day, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the Gulf nation, India and Iran today signed 12 agreements during delegation-level talks and bilateral talks in Tehran. The 2 nations also decided to jointly combat terror, radicalism and cybercrime.
India on Monday signed 12 agreements with Iran, including a contract to develop the first phase of the strategic Chabahar port. Under the pact, India will provide $500 million to develop the port. The deal helps New Delhi gain a foothold in the Islamic country and win access to Central Asia and Afghanistan. The 2 sides also signed agreements in diverse fields like trade credit, culture, science and technology, and railways.
با سرمایه‌گذاری هندوستان در توسعه بندر چابهار و تجهیز آن و همچنین اعتباراتی که برای بندر چابهار از طرف هندوستان مد نظر هست، چابهار میتونه تبدیل بشه به یک نماد بزرگ همکاری بین 2 کشور بزرگ ایران و هندوستان.
In a joint statement, Modi and Iranian President Hassan Rouhani stressed that both the countries can improve economic cooperation. India and Iran also agreed to share intelligence to fight threats of terrorism, radicalism, drug trafficking and cybercrime. Moreover, the 2 countries will enhance interaction between their defense and security institutions on regional and maritime security.
We have agreed to consult closely and regularly on combating threats of terrorism, radicalism, drug trafficking and cybercrime.
Modi will also inaugurate an Indian cultural festival in Iran as well as hold talks with the country's supreme leader Ayatollah Sayyid al-Hosseini Khamenei. The Prime Minister arrived in Iran on Sunday evening for the 2-day visit to Iran. Qurban Ali's report from Tehran for Rajya Sabha TV.
And let's go across to Tehran to our correspondent Qurban Ali, who's been covering all the developments over there. Qurban, indeed a historic day in India's ties with Iran, and this tri-party agreement really improves connectivity and opens a whole new opportunity for India as far as trade with Central Asia is concerned.
Indeed, Ishan, it's a historic moment not only for India but for Iran and Pakistan too, and they have just think that historical Chabahar agreement is just finished a minute before, and they are in a very jubilant mood. Both the three head of the state, Prime Minister Modi, President Rouhani, and President Ghani, and they were saying that they were not only signing just a piece of paper, but it will be a great road ahead. And not only this, it will be a gateway to the Central Asia as well as to Russia, as well as CIS countries and to the Eastern Europe. So they have signed it today and they have pledged their investment in this project.
All right, so, Qurban, but as far as the other agreements, also 12 more agreements were also signed. So we're looking at increased engagement with Iran ever since the lifting of the sanctions by the US, and Iran really coming into the mainstream as far as international diplomacy, and India really seizing that opportunity right now.
Sorry, could you repeat your question, Ishan? I couldn't hear you properly.
I was saying, Qurban, that there are 12 other agreements that were signed today as well. So ever since Iran has come out of the cold in terms of diplomacy, in terms of its international positions, ever since those sanctions have been taken off by the United States and other Western parties, India really seizing the opportunity to drive diplomacy forward with Iran.
Yes, you're absolutely right, and this was reiterated by President Rouhani while the signing of the bilateral agreement between India and Iran. So they are saying that now that era of sanction has gone, and they are ushering in a new era, and it will be an era for future generations.
All right, Qurban Ali, we'll be keeping track of all those developments as they happen in Iran for us. Thank you very much for joining us for now, Qurban. Well, moving on now, ISRO today took the first step in developing its first reusable space shuttle. Dubbed Swadeshi, the RLV-TD, reusable launch vehicle technology demonstrator, took off successfully from the Sriharikota spaceport in Andhra Pradesh. The mission was known as the Hypersonic Flight Experiment and was successfully accomplished in about 10 minutes.
India's first-of-its-kind space satellite launch vehicle RLV-TD was launched from Sriharikota in Andhra Pradesh on Monday morning. Indigenously built and capable of launching satellites into orbit around Earth and then re-enter the atmosphere, RLV, or the reusable launch vehicle, will drastically cut down the cost of launches by as much as 10 times.
The rockets are expended after each launch, so the cost of launch goes up. So in case we can recover these modules and reuse, then it is going to have a significant improvement in the cost reduction program. Such a cost reduction is a must for future launches, for human space flight or creating space platforms and so on.
Built at the Vikram Sarabhai Space Center in Thiruvananthapuram by a team of 600 scientists over a period of 5 years, the scaled version of the RLV is 6.5 meters long and weighs about 1.75 tons. The cost of the project is 95 crore rupees. ISRO plans to test 2 more prototypes before the final version that will be about 6 times larger and will take off around 2020. The Prime Minister congratulated ISRO on Twitter.
Indeed, this is a great day for all of us, and as you rightly said, as somebody associated with the Department of Space Government of India, it gives me a special sense of pride. And I'm sure today's day, the 23rd of May 2016, will go down in the history of ISRO as a landmark day.
The successful launch also puts India on an elite list of spacefaring nations, including the United States, Japan and Russia, which have been using their own RLVs for years.
अगर हम लोग अमेरिका और रशिया के जो स्पेस शटल जो प्रोग्राम थे उसके साथ कंपैरिजन करते हैं तो अभी ये हमारा बिल्कुल एक एक्सपेरिमेंटल स्टेज में है. हमें फुल स्केल मॉडल हम लोगों ने फुल स्केल साइज़ में नहीं किया, लेकिन इस बात में हम लोग सक्सेस पे खुश हो सकते हैं कि हम ही वो एक कंट्री है जो स्पेस शटल प्रोग्राम पे इस समय काम कर रही है.
On its maiden flight on Monday, the RLV-TD was not recovered. However, scientists were able to gather data on autonomous landing and hypersonic speed, which will be used to improve the design, paving the way for the final model. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
SRINAGAR witnessed 2 terror attacks this morning, the first in as many as 3 years. Three policemen, in fact, lost their lives in the attack, which were carried out by militants of the Hizbul Mujahideen group. Security has now been beefed up across the valley to ward off further such attempts by militants.
Within a space of 2 hours, heavily armed terrorists carried out 2 attacks in Srinagar, killing 3 policemen. In the Zadebal area, terrorists on motorcycles shot at police officers standing at a tea stall near their post. An assistant sub-inspector and a head constable were killed after being shot at from a close range. In the second attack at Tengpora, terrorists shot dead a policeman posted as a personal security guard to Muhammad Abdullah Chatwal, the chairman of the Jammu and Kashmir Pasmanda Tabqa Jat. The assailants also snatched a service rifle of the policeman.
पिछले कई महीनों से जो हिजबुल मुजाहिदीन और लश्कर तैयबा के खिलाफ जो हमारे ऑपरेशंस है उसमें काफ़ी टेररिस्ट जो है वो न्यूट्रलाइज हुए हैं. तो एक डेस्परेशन के तौर पे उन्होंने जो रूटीन पेट्रोलिंग ड्यूटी या रूटीन ट्रैफिक रेगुलेशन ड्यूटीज पे जो कांस्टेबल्स या ऑफिसर्स तैनात होते हैं उन पे अटैक किया.
The attacks by the Hizbul Mujahideen in downtown Srinagar are the first after nearly 3 years. Chief Minister Mehbooba Mufti assured strict action while paying tribute to the dead policemen. The centre put security agencies on high alert after the incident. News reports say that in the last 4 months, as many as 40 terrorists could have crossed the Pakistani border into Jammu and Kashmir.
गृह मंत्री जी और गृह मंत्रालय इसका संज्ञान लिए हुए हैं सारे घटनाक्रम का, और ये आश्वस्त करवाया गया है कि हर प्रकार की परिस्थिति से निपटने के लिए हमारी सुरक्षा सेनाएं, सुरक्षा एजेंसीज सक्षम हैं.
तकरीबन हर साल ऐसे होता है, जब गर्मियां आती हैं, जब बर्फ़ पिघलने लगती है, तब ऐसी वारदातें बढ़ जाती हैं. यकीन मैं कश्मीर के अवाम को, आप सबको ये दिलाना चाहता हूँ कि आर्मी, आरआर, पुलिस, सीआरपीएफ के साथ मिलकर, सब इंटेलिजेंस एजेंसियों के साथ मिलकर हम लोग पूरी मुस्तैदी से तैयार हैं ऐसे किसी भी हालात के लिए, और हम ऐसे इनके इरादे कामयाब नहीं होने देंगे.
The twin attacks in Srinagar come just 2 days after a soldier was killed in an encounter with militants in Kupwara district. 5 terrorists were also killed in that gun battle. Thousands of people attended their funeral, which observers claim could be a sign of growing restlessness in the valley. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Now, Rajasthan's AJMER district is in the grip of a severe drought and an acute water scarcity for many months now. The effects of the drought are visible in the entire district, with many people surviving on water provided by tankers, while others are leaving the village in search of work. Watch this RSTV special report by Arvind Kumar Singh.
One of the largest districts of Rajasthan, Ajmer has a glorious heritage. It includes the world-famous symbol of Hindu-Muslim unity, the Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti Shrine, the annual Pushkar Fair, many excellent water bodies and a huge lake. But these days, the population of over 25 million is thirsty. Nasirabad is the worst affected. Tanks have no water, and the large pond in Chhat, a village of 600 people, is completely dry. Both human beings and animals are suffering.
बहुत दिक्कत है, पानी के पीने के लिए तो बहुत प्रॉब्लम है. अभी 4 दिन 5 दिन से नल आता है, तो उसमें प्रॉब्लम, जानवरों को पानी पिलाने के लिए प्रॉब्लम हो रही है. बारिश का पानी बिल्कुल आया नहीं, कुछ तालाब में, कुछ तो कुएं भी सूख रहे हैं.
Farming has already been a casualty for some time. Farm laborers have no work. People from almost 1,176 villages are engaged in a desperate flight from home in search of work. Water is supplied for 1 hour once every 8 days, or at times even 10 days. The same is true of power supply. Animals are getting the worst of it.
पानी मतलब टाइम पे आ नहीं पा रहा है, विशेष करके कि हम तो मतलब टैंकर डलवा के ही पी लेंगे, लेकिन जानवरों के लिए हमको बहुत परेशानी है घास की और पानी की। वो सरकार से हम ये कहना चाहते हैं कि जैसे गरीब लोग हैं तो उनकी थोड़ी मदद हो जाए तो अच्छी बात है, क्योंकि जानवरों का और उनका देखभाल बड़ी मुश्किल से होता है।
The heat wave not only broke a 50-year-old record, it has imposed a curfew, forcing people to stay indoors. The government hasn't come forward with much relief. Agriculture has been destroyed to such an extent that back-to-back droughts have broken the will of farmers to invest in it.
कुल सूखा है साहब, पानी है कहीं, कोई किसी कुआं में पानी नहीं है। ये कुआं आप मौके पे जाकर भी देखोगे तो सब में बिल्कुल सूखा पड़ा है। सरकार की तरफ से कोई कुछ नहीं है।
Despite the unprecedented agrarian crisis in the countryside, the necessary government stimulus seems to be missing. The biggest problem before villagers is that of forced migration. The situation is very critical in some areas. Arvind Kumar Singh's report from AJMER for Rajya Sabha TV.
Some more national news updates now nationwide. J. Jayalalitha today took oath as Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu for the second term in a row. K. Rosaya administered the oath to Jayalalitha and a cabinet of 28 ministers at the Centenary Auditorium of Madras University. AIDMK bucked the anti-incumbency by bagging 134 seats out of the 232 in the state legislature. 10 labourers were killed and 5 others were injured after a landslide in Chakrata area in Dehradun earlier today. The mishap took place early in the morning while the labourers were sleeping. Boulders rolled down after strong winds and thunder showers hit the area. The labourers were working on a project under the Prime Minister Gramin Sadak Yojana. 2 Indian climbers were reported missing on Mount Everest since yesterday. A search operation was launched to locate them. Meanwhile, 2 other missing persons were located today. Seema Goswami, one of the rescued, developed frostbite to her hands and feet and was unable to move. Chief Minister of Delhi, Arvind Kejriwal, announced that his party, Aam Aadmi Party, will contest next year's assembly elections in Goa. The party has made inroads in a few other states too, including Western Punjab and Maharashtra. Addressing a rally, Kejriwal assured the establishment of an honest government in Goa. Goa is currently ruled by the BJP, which came to power in 2012. Time for a short break. That's lots more on the other side. Do stay tuned.
Mega spectrum auctions of 2016, which we hope to have around July of this year, will put spectrum in enough quantity on the table. 100,000 gram panchayats would be connected with 100 Mbps, which is huge speeds. Next couple of years, India will become a hub for the manufacture of mobile phones. I expect a figure of 500 million mobile phones to be manufactured in India by 2018-19.
Watch Telecom Secretary J.S. Deepak articulate in State of the Economy on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back. You're watching the news at 6. Some international news now, and at least 100 people were killed in a series of bomb attacks into government strongholds on Syria's Mediterranean coast. 7 explosions were reported that killed 53 people in Jableh and 48 in Tartus province. The Islamic State claimed responsibility for the attacks.
Multiple explosions in Syrian coastal cities of Jableh and Tartus killed more than 100 people and injured many others. 7 explosions were reported, 4 from Jableh in the Latakia province and 3 from the Tartus province further south. The Syrian Observatory said 53 people were killed in Jableh and 48 in Tartus. Government-controlled Tartus that hosts Russian forces saw 5 suicide attacks and 2 car bombs injuring scores of people. The Islamic State claimed responsibility for the attacks, claiming that it was targeting President Bashar al-Assad supporters. Both cities are strongholds of the Assad regime. Assad's family hails from the Kardaha village just 25 kilometers east of Jableh. They have been relatively insulated from the war that has killed over 2 lakh people so far since March 2011. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
The US President Barack Obama has confirmed the death of Taliban chief Mullah Akhtar Mansoor in a US drone strike. Mansoor's death is seen as an important development in efforts to bring peace to Afghanistan. His death is also likely to trigger another leadership tussle within the Taliban, which is already facing internal divisions.
It has been confirmed that he is dead, and he is an individual who, as head of the Taliban, was specifically targeting U.S. personnel and troops inside of Afghanistan who are there.
US President Barack Obama confirming the death of Afghan Taliban chief Mullah Akhtar Mansoor. The US President hailed Mullah Akhtar's death as an important milestone in the efforts to bring peace to Afghanistan. Obama, however, stressed that the operation does not mark a shift in the American military mission in Afghanistan.
This does not represent a shift in our approach. We are not re-entering the day-to-day combat operations that are currently being conducted by Afghan security forces. Our job is to help Afghanistan secure its own country, not to have our men and women in uniform engage in that fight for them.
Mansoor had earlier rejected efforts by the Afghan government to engage in peace talks and end the violence that has taken the lives of countless innocent people. Analysts believe Mansoor's death could be an opportunity for the Afghan government to resume peace talks with the militant group. But they also caution that it is likely to trigger retaliations and pose new security threats.
We know that there will be more violence. We know that there will be some revenge attacks launched by Taliban and Haqqani network. We know that perhaps today or tomorrow there will be more suicide bombings in Kabul. But we ultimately know that Taliban will not take over Kabul.
The latest blow to the Taliban also sets up a potential succession showdown in the deeply divided insurgent group. Afghan guerrilla commander Sirajuddin Haqqani has emerged as a possible successor, a more dangerous warlord in the Taliban insurgency, also responsible for the most bloody attacks. Taliban is the most powerful insurgent group in war-ravaged Afghanistan. It seized power in 1996 but was toppled by a US-led invasion following 9/11. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
With flood water starting to recede from the streets of Colombo and other flood-affected areas of Sri Lanka, authorities are now bracing to meet the mounting challenge of preventing the outbreak of epidemics. The death toll has risen to 92. Over 100 people are still missing.
As flood waters start receding in Sri Lanka, people are coming back to their homes to take stock of the devastation. After days of torrential rain followed by massive floods and landslide had severely hampered life in the island nation. More than 240,000 people have been displaced, most of them in the capital Colombo, where the Kalani River broke its banks.
සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම වගේ බඩු ඔක්කොම විනාශ වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. මගේ සම්පූර්ණ යට වුණා. ඒත් එක්කම අපේ මේ කඩේ ගබඩා තිබිච්ච යකඩ කම්බි ඉතුරු වටිනා අයිටම් ඔක්කොම යට වුණා. ලක්ෂ 20කට යට වුණා. ඒත් එක්කම අපේ කඩේ මහපාර තියෙන කඩේ ලක්ෂ 60ක බඩු ඇති. ඒක යට වෙලා තියෙනවා.
Meanwhile, the death toll has risen to over 90. Soldiers searching for victims buried in debris in 3 villages pulled out 15 more bodies from the rubble. The receding water level has brought the fear of waterborne diseases.
Once the water goes down, the flood levels, there'll be fever, and of course because of the germs in the water, it's injured between their toes, so it's all infected, so we have to give antibiotics for them.
People have been asked to stay extra vigilant as further rains are expected to break over the island in the next few days. Foreign aid has also begun arriving, with an Indian Air Force plane bringing supplies to the capital and 2 Indian naval ships also docked in Sri Lanka. President Maithripala Sirisena has urged people to provide shelter and donate cash or food to the flood victims. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, that's it from us. Goodbye.